Good afternoon. Let me ask you a question today. Most people say they want change. Think about that. Most people say they want change. Very few people actually decide. There's a difference when you are really thinking about this between the two. And there's something in the actual way in which there's a substance to the improvement in making an actual decision that provides and removes pretty much at the same time. It provides and removes every other option. And so, what I'm actually driving to right now, and until that moment really happens, the mind actually keeps negotiating. The mind keeps negotiating. Think about that. Until you actually get to that point, your mind will continue to keep negotiating with you. Good afternoon. My name is Ron Gagosian. I am coming to you from the San Francisco Bay Area. For those of you who haven't met me, I hope and I pray that someday I will meet you. For those that are watching later out on YouTube, you can catch this at Gagosian Group. And it's all there in the library of content. So I've spent much of my career working with organizations at the executive level, both in very, very large multinational financial institutions, regional organizations that are California based in the financial services. So I essentially cut my teeth in the uh, financial services industry at both the very large and at the regional and state level. So, and in that, I have had the opportunity to live within in those institutions technology. I've run technology teams in complex operating environments. And from the most part, it's been a journey. It's been a journey that has led to a lot of different environments. And there definitely was no shortage of strategy or plans, frameworks, projects, chaos. Um, I really probably can't count on one hand in those environments, especially at the large corporate level, where there really wasn't a state of chaos not going on. But the organizations that moved forward were not the ones with the, I would say, to be kind, the best strategies. Yeah, they weren't the ones with the best strategies. And they were the ones where leadership was fragmented, or actually, I think a better word is fractionated. So you would have a very large corporate dominant presence. And at the same time, you had at the divisional level people almost walking not in the opposite direction, but getting off the path and moving in deeper into the weeds, so to speak. So a lot of times leadership didn't have and nor make really clear decisions. And you could feel it. You could sit in large conference rooms with everybody around the table at multiple levels, taking notes, some having their pen and paper, not taking any notes and just listening, or, um, you know, just it's funny. I had someone, this is really funny. Someone every meeting would bring in a plastic bottle, talk about chaos, or someone that was, I guess, adverse to chaos, but this is quite funny. He'd always bring in a big bottle, like an institutional bottle, something you'd see the pharmacist or the druggist use that they pull off the shelf, pour out, and then create their required amount of dosage for a patient. But it had Prozac on the front. So I always used to get a kick out of that, saying, really? So this is how people feel about this organization, this particular division. There must have been some chaos going on. But that's from an observer versus a participant view. But most people are observing change. And that's really what I want to concentrate on today. Most people are observing the change, whether that's change in your own life or it's change at in the company level, at your leadership level, but they're not actually participating in it. So let me ask you this. Are you here to observe today because something needs to move? Let me ask that question again. Are you here today to observe because something needs to move? So, from that, let's talk about awareness, your awareness versus decision making. Most high capacity people, and let me clarify that, high capacity people don't necessarily need to be the wealthiest ones in the room, but high capacity people, people like you that take the time to watch these kinds of videos, you already know what to do. And I'm saying that very seriously and quite honestly. You already know what to do. The issue is not more information. It's about alignment. And you don't need more information. You need to execute on your capacity. We'll explain more a little bit down the road about that. So there's a difference between knowing and deciding. There is a difference. Think about some examples in your life how knowing and deciding actually begin to bump into each other because you know what to do, whether it's in your office workspace or it's at home over certain financial things or buying a piece of real estate or making an investment or leading teams. You know what to do, but it's about deciding. So, what you're really looking at right there is a negotiation trap. Most people live in the whole space of I'm working on it. So that's a negotiation tactic your mind uses on you and says, I'm trying, I'm working on it. So it sounds responsible, but it usually means the back door is very much wide open. And that gives you the room to escape. That gives you the place. So I want to digress just for a moment. The word try or trying, you've probably told yourself that or you've heard other people. Does that sting a little bit? At a not at a hypocritical level, but when you hear it, it actually stings a bit because the word try, or when you hear people say, well, I'm trying to do that, that's really a trap. It's a lie. They're actually moving towards something, but something is getting in the way, and something is negotiating between knowledge and decision making. So at a particular point, everything changes, and a real decision eliminates negotiation. Energy aligns, time aligns, and behavior follows. Most of you here today are building a muscle. You're building a mind muscle. You're here and you're interested and you're learning. You want to know, how do I break this? What is this negotiation that goes on in my mind between knowing what I need to do and making that decision? And it's pressure. It's not about information. It's pressure that is pushing on you, and you negotiate with it, because truly building capacity under pressure is really where the negotiation stops. Pressurized capacity in a repeated mode stops the negotiation. So once you decide, you become very visible. Results become measurable if you have the proper metrics. And they put that caveat in there. If you have the proper metrics, because if things can't be measured and they can't be tracked, not a lot happens. So whether it's in a work environment, you need to track it. If it's at home, you need to balance your checkbook. I'm not telling you how to run your world, but I'm saying it's probably a good idea. And so people who want to build, they can build once a decision happens and they make a decision. Internal friction really disappears. And so what that really, really means is that capacity under pressure helps move you without negotiation to make those decisions. So without the friction, and once that disappears, external progress begins to accelerate. So let's talk about the aligned leader and the leader that you are. Pardon me. People who move and who move decisively move the needle. Now, we hear that metaphor a lot. It could be a speedometer. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's more increased intensity, but that means they're achieving results. And again, those results have to be measured. If you're not tracking the monthly, the 60-day, the 90-day results, you're never going to know how that's working. Very serious. So generally, when you can track outside of 4 to 5 day bursts of intensity, and you can actually begin to look back 7 days, 14 days, 1 month at the 30-day mark, and then begin to move into the next 60-day to the 90 days, that's where business leaders, entrepreneurs begin to scale. They begin to scale their lives, and that's a very, very tough and poignant transition point, where when you are in that stage of life, you're not saying, I'm working on it. Instead, you're actually deciding, and you're moving beyond negotiation, because you have trained your mind to move through the place of stopping the negotiation, because you're tracking and you're actually moving outside of these intense bursts where you collapse. You don't necessarily collapse, but you'll stop after 4 or 5 days of intensity and say, why didn't I meet my goals this quarter? Why didn't I meet my goals this month? And the reason is because you're not scaling properly. There's a lot going on. I know that. And if we were sitting down having coffee, I could explain some and had more time, I could explain real life. And maybe we'll do that. Maybe what we'll do instead of lecturing and moving and talking about a particular topic, I'll give you some real heavy um, some opportunities to hear how I was able to tighten up that framework and I could begin to move into a mindset daily of achieving goals, moving through those 4 to 5 days of intense bursts of leadership and energy and begin to refocus my mind to take me to a 30-day, a 60-day, a 90-day, 120-day actual, it's a long distance run, not a sprint. So the moment everything changes is not when you try harder. It's when you decide fully to make that move. I have seen it in my mentors. My mentor actually tells me that, Ron, if I looked at your calendar for 30 days, if I looked at your calendar for 30 days, could I actually see what you wanted and what your goals were? So your actual calendar will show very, very intense people who are intent and have an intensity to build and to scale. They have that ability to move. And they'll actually be able to see that if you were courageous enough to open your calendar. So, from that, today we've talked about decision making. We've talked about the whole opportunity to move your needle or the accelerator, the speedometer. That includes braking as well. So, in a car, we just don't step on the accelerator. We have a braking system that we slow down. And sometimes slowing down is better than speeding up, especially in leadership when you are in snow or rain or ice going around in a 2-lane road where you need to slow down way before so you don't slide into the guardrail or have a very tragic accident. So what this means is that it's not about the speed or the acceleration that you must take a look at. You must take a look at how this looks to you in terms of what you want to do, how you're making your decisions in leadership, and then moving yourself into a place where you can honestly say, am I negotiating with my outcome here? And then I would suggest that you would look to people who have mastered that. And I'm going to ask a question now that actually will say to you and ask you a direct question. So if you're out there and you're interested in hearing more, put a 1 in the chat. Okay. And what that actually begins to tell me is that there are some interested people. There are people that actually want the ability to master the capacity and the pressure to narrow the gap between saying, I'm going to try it, and actually increasing the amount of pressure they put on themselves, where their ego stops negotiating or creating this fortress. And there's a very, very great book by a gentleman named David Carsey And the title of the book is called Heart to Start, one of my favorite business books. And there's many others, but I'm just am so impressed with the way he articulates how our ego gets in the way. It creates a fortress. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say you have a task and you're all set. You come in, you sit down, you're at your desk, you're in your workplace, and all of a sudden your mind flashes and you go, oh, I want to check Instagram or I want to check Facebook, what have you, or TikTok or whatever the social media is. That's a classic one. And you do. And then all of a sudden you look at your clock and you go, oh my gosh, 15 or 20 minutes has passed and you've been scrolling. One of the ways that you can conquer that, and this is not a how-to, but one of the ways is to create a mind note that actually says, when that desire comes up and you have something pressing that you need to do, or you need to get to the actual task so it can be completed, it might be writing a book, it might be 10 more pages, you might be 100 pages away from finishing that book. And it needs to get to the publisher because you've signed a contract and you've got an advance hanging out there and you don't want any calls from any lawyers or from the editor. You may want to give yourself a quick 10-minute timeout and say, I'm not getting up from my desk. I'm not going to scroll. I'm not going to answer the telephone. It can go to voicemail. I'm just going to complete that task. And what research has shown is that that desire will actually pass within about 5 minutes. And the more you do that, you train your mind to actually stop negotiating. It's all part of the neuroscience, and there's so much research going on now in this neuro research aspect of what is the difference between people who say they want to do something and the people that actually say that they're thinking about it or that they're trying to do it. And from people who actually have built the capacity, they don't need any more information to execute. They actually begin to execute. So what my hope and my desire is today is that you can take away from all of this. And this is not an hour presentation. It's not an hour talk. It's just a time where you can sit down with me via technology and you can hear me speak about what is currently neuroscience, what is working in the workplace for high capacity individuals. And I actually want you, and will ask you a question. Will you today make a decision right now without going into any negotiation about money or time or a lot of the classic objections, and sit down and follow up with me in a clarity call about how you believe you negotiate and you actually live between your decision making and your thoughts and not being able to achieve those particular goals that you set. The reasoning that I'm putting out there today is that when you have a mentor, when you have somebody that you can actually speak this to, that's where the real work begins. That's where the real work begins. It begins when you can verbalize whatever that might be and say, I'm not reaching my goals. I'm not in the leadership position that I desire to be in. And it's not all about making more money. It may be that you're here today and you're in a corporate position. It may be you're a consultant. It may be that you are in network marketing in an entrepreneurial type of setting. There are so many incredible uh, avenues to produce income today. You may be a serial entrepreneur who has multiple streams of income. Will you today go to the Gagosiangroup.com and schedule a clarity call and be able, whether or not you really have a clear and firm idea about what it is or what it might be. And I'm speaking really in vague terms at the moment because I don't know your situation. But I'm just going to leave it in that frame. Will you make the decision today, right now? Because that's what high capacity leaders do. They make a decision. They may not necessarily know what the outcome, they know what they want. They don't necessarily know the steps and the movement and the momentum of how that will actually work. So again, for those of you that are not with us live, you can go out to Gagosiangroup.com, go to the website, click on the link. You will be able to see and review this webinar and previous webinars. You can go out to YouTube at Gagosian Group, and you will be able to see the library of content that is out there. These are very, very powerful concepts. And I'm going to end with this, that you're at a crossroads. You're at a crossroads in your work, in your life, and you're here for a reason. And generally, when people are taking time out of their day, somewhere about 4:30 Pacific time, that's 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time, and whether you're in a European marketplace or a African, or you're down in New Zealand, in Asiana, and it's tomorrow morning-ish, you're watching this because you were directed here. You were directed by really energy. And so the energy that you project is going to be the energy that you will collect. So with that, I want to thank you. Again, my name is Ron Gagosian. I'm one of the owners of the Gagosian Group. You can visit us at www.gagosiangroup.com. You can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us on Instagram at globallyaligned.Ron Gagosian. And you'll see a lot of our content out there. And again, thank you and good night.